The Ramos administration. Hostilities in Mindanao continued to exist through the Ramos administration. This somehow showed that the peace initiatives by the previous administrations prior to the Ramos administration seemed inadequate in resolving the conflict in Mindanao. Nearly 20 years after the Tripoli Agreement was signed, the Ramos administration intended to settle the conflict in Mindanao peacefully by giving the agreement a chance for implementation. Ramos started negotiating with the MNLF. He used the Tripoli Agreement as the framework of his administration's move to resolve the problem in Mindanao. On September 2, 1996, after 4 years of thorough negotiations, President Ramos and Ms. Wari signed the final peace agreement in Mindanao. After the signing of the agreement, President Ramos was quoted as saying, "This peace agreement falls squarely into our aspiration of total peace and development for all, especially the millions of poor and destitute masses in our southern regions." Final peace agreement. To answer the demands of the Moros on their lack of development, economic and political opportunities, the final peace agreement's implementation was divided into 2 phases. The first phase was a 3-year transition period of confidence building that included Nur Miswari running for ARMM governor. The second phase of the implementation of the agreement was to provide autonomy to the provinces that voted for inclusion. Phase 1. Confidence building. Creation of a Special Zone of Peace and Development, SZOPAD, composed of Palawan, 13 of the 22 provinces of Mindanao, and 9 cities located therein. The 13 provinces were Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, Zamboanga del Sur, Zamboanga del Norte, North Cotabato, Maguindanao, Sultan Kudarat, Lanao del Norte, Lanao del Sur, Davao del Sur, South Cotabato and Sarangani, and Palawan. The 9 cities included Cotabato, Dapitan, Dipolog, General Santos, Iligan, Marawi, Pagadian, Zamboanga, and Puerto Princesa. This territorial coverage took effect during the first phase or the transition period, which started on September 1996 and ended on September 1999. During this period, developmental projects such as livelihood and infrastructure poured in on the areas covered by SZOPAD. It was hoped that by providing development in these areas, the people would vote for inclusion in the new Regional Autonomous Government, NRAG. After the said period, a plebiscite would be held and only the provinces and cities that would vote in favor of autonomy would be included in the NRAG. Establishment of the Southern Philippines Council for Peace and Development, SPCPD. The SPCPD's role was to manage peace and development efforts within SZOPAD. That is, projects for peace and development should be implemented. Examples of peace and development efforts were road building and irrigation projects, catching criminals, and providing emergency aid to victims of natural disasters. Establishment of a Consultative Assembly, CA. The CA serves as a forum where all voices can be heard. Opinions and recommendations to improve the functions of the SPCPD can also be raised to the CA. The CA can also make rules and regulations for the effective and efficient services of the SPCPD. Phase 2. Granting of Autonomy. NRAG was established on September 1999 in Phase 2 of the implementation of the agreement. The NRAG would have its own administrative system as well as representation in the national government. It would also have its own regional security force, an educational system that incorporates Islamic teachings, tax-raising powers, and Sharia courts, courts that follow Islamic teachings. If many of the provinces of SZOPAD would vote in favor of autonomy, it would only mean that the government was able to gain the confidence of the people. It was hoped that after the success of Phase 1, the rebel groups would give up their separatist motives and settle for an autonomous region. Let's summarize what we have learned so far. Former President Ferdinand Marcos and MNLF leader Nur Miswari signed the first peace agreement between the government and the MNLF on December 23, 1976. This was called the Tripoli Agreement and was mediated by the Organization of Islamic Conference. Under the Tripoli Agreement, the government should grant autonomy to 13 of the 22 provinces of Mindanao, Sulu, and Palawan Islands. Former President Corazon Aquino's administration passed the Organic Act for the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, ARMM. Under the ARMM, only 4 provinces of Mindanao voted in favor of autonomy. This was rejected by the MNLF upon asserting that the Tripoli Agreement should be implemented and the movement should be included in drafting plans regarding the governance and development of Mindanao. Former President Fidel Ramos and MNLF leader Nur Miswari signed the final peace agreement on September 2, 1996, after 4 years of thorough negotiations. The final peace agreement was to be implemented in 2 phases. Phase 1 of the implementation of the final peace agreement was for confidence building. Phase 2, on the other hand, would grant the autonomy of the provinces that will vote in favor of autonomy. It is indeed a long journey towards peace in Mindanao. Even until today, there are still struggles that we need to address in Mindanao. Do you think the final peace agreement was successful? Stay tuned for Lesson 3 to know the aftermath of this agreement. See you soon, mga ka-learners!